Well, good afternoon, fellow Islanders. Let me just begin off the top to say that Dr. Morrison will not be doing a brief today. She still doesn't have results back from the national lab in Winnipeg, and we'll be back here tomorrow. And just wanted to express that she feels a little bit guilty for not being here, but we can forgive her for all the work that she's done. And I know that she's not on air here today, but she's certainly working hard. So. And I thank her for that. I'm joined today by Ministers Trivers and Fox, so we'll talk today about some of our primary resources and as well as our education and early childhood updates as well. But I'll just begin by saying that as we look out the window today, we see that the snow is disappearing, the soil is drying, spring is very much in the air. And in a normal year, that would signal that our primary economic sectors of agriculture, fisheries, and tourism would be coming on stream. Fishers would be painting buoys, farmers would be getting ready to turn the land, and tourism operators would be taking down the plywood and airing out their establishments and preparing for millions to ascend on our province. But as we've come to know these past few weeks, this is anything but a normal year. Our three core industries have been hit hard by the COVID-19 crisis, and they are facing many, many challenges today as well as tomorrow. Over the last 24 hours and beyond, I have met with the ministers responsible for each of these industries to ensure that we are adequately prepared to support these industries during these most challenging times. What we know is twofold. First, that these primary industries have been the drivers of our strong island economy for decades, and two, that all three industries, like so many others, are being severely impacted by the worldwide economic downturn connected to COVID-19. Our respective ministers and their staffs are working closely with stakeholders in those sectors to determine the immediate challenges and to best determine the short-term strategies needed to help our core industries adapt to these new realities. Additionally, we are working closely with these sectors to best determine what we need to do together to position our province for recovery whenever that may come. Pertaining first to agriculture, there are challenges with getting last season's harvested crops and products to market, and that is a market that has been hit hard worldwide. And also there's an issue with ensuring that our island farmers are equipped with the necessary resources and labor to put a crop in the ground as spring approaches. Minister Thompson will be coming out in the days ahead with more details on our plans and how we will assist the agriculture industry in Prince Edward Island. Similarly, in tourism, we have a sector that in any normal year, as I said, would be getting ready to kick into full operation, but they aren't. Many tourism operators had been reporting strong bookings in the early season and had been positioned for what looked to be another strong tourism season. But that optimism has dropped as those bookings have been canceled and so many more haven't materialized. Minister McKay and the staff from Tourism P.E.I. have been working with the industry and understanding the reality that, like many other industries, those in the tourism sector are struggling with cash flow issues and with a growing uncertainty of just when our tourism season could begin. Aside from having challenges about when to begin to get ready or even to open, we know that many in this industry have a short window of a season to make money, and many of their financial arrangements are made around making balloon financing payments in late summer or fall. And that will be very difficult this year, if not impossible. Like agriculture and fisheries, the tourism sector has carried the island economy for many years. We will be there for our key industries and to make the necessary investments we need to make to help them weather this difficult storm. We realize as a government that it will take significant investment, and we are prepared to make it. Collectively, these three industries bring almost $2 billion in economic activity to our province annually. They employ thousands of islanders, and they are the very fabric of who we are as islanders. And we will step up with the investments that are needed, first to help our industries get back on some level footing, and then to ensure that we are positioned for the recovery that we know will come. We also know that there are many, many questions about the fishing sector. Many of those questions we don't have answers to as of yet. As Minister Fox will share in a moment, as it stands today, we are operating under the hope that there will be a spring fishing season. We don't know what that looks like today. We know that local, national, and international markets aren't as robust as they normally would be this time of year, but we know those markets exist, and we know those markets love our world-class fisheries products. Ultimately, this is a federally regulated sector. The final decision will and must come from Ottawa. But as it stands today, we know from a P.E.I. perspective that there are a variety of factors at play. The first being, in this new world that is now COVID-19, can we safely harvest, buy, sell, and transfer and process lobsters? That is a question that we're dealing with daily through the Public Health Office. We are working through Minister Fox's department and with industry stakeholders to explore just how the industry could safely undertake a fishery, renewing protocols, etc., while respecting the physical distancing efforts we are taking to contain COVID-19 as a province and as a region. And those discussions are ongoing. Secondly, there is no definitive position, no consensus from any sector in this industry, or any region for that matter, as to what the best answer is. We have heard a variety of opinions from amongst fishers, from buyers, from processors, from all aspects of the sector, and there is no consensus. Some want to go and are ready to go, some don't want to go, some want to have a delay, and many don't know what to think. I believe that we can find the best answers in the days ahead by continuing to work together, to consult, and I'm confident that Minister Fox and his departmental staff will consult with industry stakeholders continually to ensure voices and opinions are heard, and that whatever decisions are made in the best interest of those impacted. I know that fishers want to fish, farmers want to farm, tourism operators want to open their establishments and throw around the island hospitality that keeps bringing people back to our province. Their feelings represent the feeling of every islander. They want this nightmare that we are living to end and for us to return to normal. We all want that. But until such time as that is a reality, we have to deal with the really crappy hand that we've been dealt. We need to find a way to get through. We need to keep our core industries as strong as we can keep them, to try to hold on to the incredible markets that we have developed and built, and that will require us to work together. It will require us also to accept that life today isn't the same as it was in the past. Therefore, we need to be open to make choices that we've never had to make in the past. And most of all, that will require government to step up and to do everything that we can to help our primary sectors survive and through time get back to doing what we do best, and that is to thrive. We will do that. To the people who are employed in these sectors, to those who have been the drivers of our economy for so long, to those of you who have always been there for us, we will be there for you, and we will get through this together. And with that, I will turn it over now to Minister Fox to talk about a more fulsome discussion as to what is actually taking place in terms of discussion within the fishery of Prince Edward Island. So, Minister.
Well, thank you, Premier. As the Premier and my cabinet colleagues have said, nearly every day for the past few weeks, these are certain extraordinary times. COVID-19 has impacted every aspect of our lives. For some, that impact is wrapped in uncertainty. There have been endless questions about the future of this year's commercial fishing seasons, about the future of those who work in the fishing industries, the fishers, the growers, the processors, the producers, and the workers. So many island families are tied to the livelihood of the fishing industry, which is also important to our provincial economy. Both the Premier and I have been working with our regional and federal counterparts to address concerns and to find a way through this together. As we all can appreciate, the fishing industry is federally regulated. We also recognize the seafood is considered essential under the federal identification process. And now, more than ever, we need leadership from the federal government to decide on the future of the spring season. We also need to ensure that there is regional parity to the federal government's decision. As a government, we want to see the spring fishery season take place that is so sensitive to public health concerns and the need to ensure the safety of those working in this industry. The fishing industry which includes the lobster, the crab, the finfish, the oysters, the mussels, and the wild oyster fishery, and many other species, also has an important voice that must be heard and taken into consideration. However, we understand the opinions are widespread across these industries. As I mentioned earlier, the fishing industry is important to our province, contributing almost $600 million to our provincial economy each year and employ approximately 8,000 islanders. It has been rapidly and significantly impacted by the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. Workers are worried about their jobs. Sales for the aquaculture sector have decreased. Fishers are worried about their upcoming seasons, and processors are working hard to find ways to provide a safe working environment to process product while trying to find markets for these products. My department is working to address the industry's concerns and find ways in which fishers and aquaculture can succeed in the face of this rapidly changing environment we now find ourselves in. Communication is key during times like these when we find ourselves literally in uncharted waters, when we are being asked to change the way we live and interact with others in the interest of public safety. I have been sharing my concerns and relaying information from P.E.I.'s industries with the Federal Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and my Eastern Canadian colleagues during our weekly calls. Working together with my regional counterparts, we are sharing ideas and collaborating to develop joint solutions to reduce the impacts of COVID-19 on the fishing and the aquaculture sectors as much as possible. We are developing supports and programs for all sectors and collaborating on decisions regarding our important lobster, crab, finfish, oyster, and shellfish fisheries and the aquaculture industry. There are important decisions before us, and we must consider what the opening of the spring lobster, snow crab, and oyster fisheries will look like. We will continue to call on our federal government to give us indication of what the future holds so that our industry can be prepared. This has to be done sooner rather than later. While we wait for a decision to be made, we continue to work with the association and industry to ensure that the workplace and every touch point, from the boat to the landing, from the processing and distribution in each sector, is safe and complies with the standards set up by the Chief Public Health Office. This is crucial for the health and the safety of all islanders, and I cannot stress enough how important this is. I also want to give credit to industry and the work they have done to put quality control practices in place that are above expectations. My hope is that we will know sooner rather than later what will happen with the spring fishing season, and we will do everything we can to support industry once that decision is made. As a province, we are making every possible effort to chart a path forward that minimize the impacts of COVID-19 on our fishing industry and all islanders. I'd also like to touch on our economic development and agency update for the employment. As our province deals with the consequences of COVID-19, the provincial government is committed to helping returning people to work and to help businesses and organizations hire the staff they need. The sooner people are able to return to work, the better off islanders will be. This is a necessary step to provide and help our province and its economy return to a normal activity. The Employment Development Agency was created to deliver short-term wage subsidy to targeted groups through programs including the Jobs for Youth, the Job Creation Program, the Special Projects Program, and the Rural Jobs Initiative. EDA is well positioned to help people who will need assistance seeking work, as well as organizations, including businesses, nonprofits, or communities that are looking for workers. Due to our current situation, we have extended the deadline for Jobs for Youth from March 31st to April the 30th to allow employers ample time to apply for wage subsidies from this program. Approved businesses will be posted to our website, and young people will be able to apply directly to the jobs that interest them. The Jobs for Youth program supports approximately 400 students annually, and we are prepared to increase that amount. In 2019, the EDA program helped over 1,100 people. Islanders gained work experience, and we are prepared to postpone and respond. Those numbers increased as required. All of our programs will be open to applications. Though the process may have changed somewhat due to the physical distancing and the number of our public servants who are working from home. The Employment Development Agency will continue to support individuals seeking employment, community organizations, and rural-based small businesses throughout the challenging time, while always being respectful of the directions of the Chief Public Health Office. We will continue to review our programs as we move forward into a period of recovery to ensure that we can do best serve Islanders, the businesses, and our communities. And I'd like to assure each sector that the provincial programs that are normally available for industry support will continue to be available and are accepting applications despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much.
And with that, I will pass it on now to Minister Trivers, who's been working on two of the most critical files that we've been working on, obviously, our home-based e-learning education for our students and working with our early childhood education partners to provide needed health care for essential workers in P.E.I. So, Minister Trivers.
Well, thank you very much, Premier. And during these times, we are reminded of the very important role of our healthcare providers, our essential service workers, and also our educators. Our schools are at the heart of our communities, and today they are reaching out to support our children and families in ways that we've never seen before. Nos écoles sont au cœur de nos communautés, et aujourd'hui, ils soutiennent nos enfants et nos familles d'une manière que nous avons jamais vue. Our teachers are moving their instruction from the classroom to the home, which is no easy feat. Teachers are working with staff of the department, the public schools branch, and la Commission scolaire de langue française to provide the best home learning supports for our over 20,000 students. As a first step, home learning materials were made available to students in kindergarten through grade 12 on our websites. And this week, teachers began taking the lead on home learning activities. Teachers are reaching out to their students in ways that work best for them, best for the students, whether that be phone, email, or online through tools like Google Classroom. And a variety of online and offline home learning materials are being provided. So regardless of access to the internet, students can continue learning. The public schools branch and la Commission scolaire de langue française are preparing over 200 packages of basic school supplies, including paper, pencils, and scribblers, and these will be made available to any student who may not have them at home. As teachers identify technology needs of students, we are finding ways to help. For example, we are exploring the possibility of getting Chromebooks from schools to students, beginning with those in grade 12. And we are identifying ways to get printed learning materials safely to families who are without technology and internet access. This weekend, parent tips were posted on the website to help parents support their children's learning at home. Cette fin de semaine, de conseils aux parents ont été affichés sur le site web pour aider les parents à soutenir l'apprentissage de leurs enfants à la maison. We understand that home learning is difficult for parents, and we don't want parents to worry about their children falling behind. All we're asking is that parents just do your best, and when schools reopen, all children will be supported so they can move forward with their learning. Our main priority remains the well-being of families and children during this time away from school and early year centers. We understand that families are facing a tough situation, and for those struggling, it's even harder now. So school counselors and psychologists are working together to get in contact with students who may need support. Schools are setting up virtual student services meetings to support students. Student Services has started a Facebook page with tips and videos to support children and families at this time. Students and their families who are feeling vulnerable and need support during school closures can reach out to 902-368-5155 or supportforfamilies@edu.pe.ca. And additionally, we encourage vulnerable children and youth to call the Kids Helpline 1-800-668-6868. The absence of school, breakfast, and lunch programs is also putting a strain on some families. So with the help of our school food team and the Department of Social Development and Housing, almost 3,000 healthy meals will be prepared this week and delivered to students. So meals are being provided from Kincora Regional High School, École François Biot, the Home Plate in Murray River, and Alberton Bakery. And the program provides for 1 meal per student each day, plus some snacks. And the safe delivery of these meals is being made possible by government departments cooperating along with community volunteers. The P.E.I. Home and School Federation and the Breakfast Club of Canada are important partners in this initiative, so thank you. We also recognize the enormous efforts of so many others who are providing food to island children and their families. Now, our early childhood educators are also rising to the challenge by setting up emergency childcare centers for the children of essential workers. And to date, almost 600 families have applied for these services. Early childhood staff are calling all families who applied, and they will have contacted every family by the end of this week. The emergency childcare centers follow very clear guidelines from the Chief Public Health Office. No center will have more than 20 people, including the children and adults. There will be no more than 5 people in a room, and social distancing guidelines will apply as much as possible. Centers must follow strict protocols with regard to increased cleaning and disinfecting, staggered drop-off, and outdoor playtimes. We now have 11 emergency childcare centers operating across the island, with 13 more ready to go. Additional inspectors have been appointed to work with the emergency childcare centers to ensure that children and staff are kept safe. And now some families have opted for home-based care, where people come into their homes to care for their children while they are at work providing the essential services for the rest of us. Now, our public libraries are also stepping up to help out, and every day they are posting more and more online learning resources. Access to library platforms like Tumblebook are up 100%, and ebooks are up over 50%. Libraries are also offering new programs such as quarantine crafts and online story times in English and in French. Our public archives staff are inviting islanders to share their stories of living through this pandemic, to be recorded for historical purposes, and they are receiving a terrific response. I want to close by commending our tremendous staff for their exemplary efforts, especially our teachers. Much of this is new work. There will undoubtedly be some glitches, which we will all address. And most importantly, education will continue as we go forward together. I want to assure you that we are hearing your concerns about post-secondary students as well. And we hope to have more information to share soon on our efforts to support post-secondary students during these trying times. Thank you, merci. Premier?
Well, thank you, Minister Trivers, and I just, before we go to take questions, would echo the comments of the staff in education have been working really, really hard. The teachers across P.E.I. Doing what they have done in a short time has been nothing short of spectacular. And a shout out, of course, to the Early Childhood Development Association through Sonia Hooper and her shop, who have really gone above and beyond what we've ever could have asked in terms of responding to this incredible need. So thank you very much to both the ministers, and we will now open the floor to some questions from our friends in the media.
Nicole Williams, CBC.
Yes, hi there. My first question is for Premier King. I'm wondering if you're at all concerned on the fact that Dr. Morrison is still waiting for test results from Winnipeg. Do you think this is taking too long?
Yeah, thank you, Nicole, for the question. Yes, I am concerned, and yes, I do think it's taking too long. I think when I talk to Dr. Morrison daily, we are, I think there's only one of the territories, I think, who uses the National Micro Lab as their own primary testing. We don't have our own beyond what we've been developing a little bit along the way. So we have been asking for a quicker turnaround. We do understand they're under some great pressure. Our worry is that we're probably up over 300 tests, I believe now, Nicole, that we're waiting on. We haven't had an announcement of a positive test in a few days, and the conversation we had today, Dr. Morrison and I, was that we feel that this might be luring islanders into a false sense of belief that we have flattened the curve, so to speak, and we haven't. We are increasing our testing, and we fully anticipate that through that increased testing we will have more positive cases. And it is frustrating, absolutely, that we have put every type of pressure that we can to get return more quickly, and we feel that has been answered, but here we are today, and we don't have any tests back. So we'll continue to push it, but yes, it is a concern for Dr. Morrison and for me.
Thank you so much. And then my next question is for Minister Fox. I'm just wondering, if the spring fishery is to actually go ahead, how can workers on boats and processing facilities possibly follow physical distancing rules?
Thank you very much for the question, Nicole. It's something we've been talking very much with industry about, you know, from actually the boat, you know, the P.E.I, of course, and the actual processors, the buyers on the wharf. And we are working with them to try to develop protocols of what the fishery could look like. This could look like, you know, non-essential people would be on boats, like no family members. This could be like a minimum crew thing, making sure that OHS guidelines are followed and the crew is safe. But I can tell you that we are working with industry, trying to find what the best protocols would be going forward, making sure we follow Dr. Morrison's guidelines and what protocols need to be put in place to ensure the safety of not only the crews but the all workers and the actual islanders themselves.
Yeah, and just, Nicole, as a follow-up there, that like many in the essential food section here across P.E.I and beyond, a lot of the processing of food has had to adapt, and I think what Minister Fox talked about and what we talked with Dr. Morrison about is how we would possibly do that within our own seafood facilities. So the questions we don't have answered today, but they are important questions, and we look to try to find some solutions.
Nicola McLeod, CBC. Hi, my question is for Minister Fox. I know you're working with your federal counterparts, but what is your interpretation right now on where the federal minister stands on whether the season will open on time?
Good question. I can tell you we started conversations with our provincial ministers about 4 weeks ago, and then we brought in the federal department about a week after that, and we've been having weekly conversations and sometimes daily conversations back and forth of what the fishery could look at. This is a very complex issue covering a wide variety of species across the Atlantic region. I can say that we've also included in this the province of Quebec and the minister up there. And basically the federal minister, my opinion is that she wants direction from industry. She wants to hear from the provincial ministers and all sectors on what a fishery would look like if a decision is made to go forward.
Great, thank you. And for Premier King, Mr. McKay has mentioned last week that he was expecting we would have a firm number on the amount of people laid off on P.E.I. Can you give us some information on that and any feedback you've heard about islanders who are applying for CERB this week?
I think the last number that I have is we're knocking close toward 9,000, I believe, is the most recent number, and we fully anticipate that to continue. There is some frustration with many trying to get into the system to qualify for E.I through the CERB and through some other programs. The conversations we've had with our federal partners is more and more resources have been put toward that. They feel it's getting a little bit better every day, but there is a frustration that this isn't as timely or seamless as we need it to be. Part of the reason why we've been ramping up some of our provincial gaps coverage and transitions as well to try to help people get through until the money rolls. But, you know, it would be less than honest for any of us to say that that's been a seamless and efficient process at the federal level, because it hasn't been.
Stu Neepy, The Guardian.
Hi, good afternoon. I guess this is a question for Minister Fox, although I guess it could be as easily for Premier King. You'd mentioned that there's some differences of opinion, I guess, in the industry about how to go ahead with a season. I wonder kind of where these differences are coming from. Are there, for example, does the P.E.I have a difference of opinion other than processors? Like, what do different areas of the industry tend to think about this?
Well, thank you, Stu, for the question. And look, I think it's there are a variety of opinions from many, many different sectors. I don't think there's an across-the-board belief from harvesters, for example, that there's one position. There certainly isn't within the processing sector, to say the least, and there certainly isn't across the region. I mean, the minister can share you a little bit more from what some of the other regions are looking at, but I do think it's fair to say that everyone would like some type of fishery to take place if it can be held safely and the health and safety of those involved in it can be protected. But I think there is a variety of opinion just in terms of whether we should delay, whether we should go, whether we shouldn't, and I don't think that's there's no uniformity across any sector that I know, Minister.
Thank you, Premier. As I said earlier, this is a very complex issue. The fishery is divided over 5 provinces covering different areas and different fishing grounds. So we have some LFAs or some areas it's affected and some areas it's not affected right now. So you have a variety of different opinions from these different LFAs that are going into the P.E.I, on a variety of opinions. And the P.E.I is working very hard to work with all their harvesters to come up with opinion. But then we also have market challenges from other LFAs in the Maritimes, and we have other provinces with different opinions. So this is all feeding into the federal system of DFO. So it's a very complex, integrated system that has a lot of moving parts that have to be considered.
And Stu, as you know, I think the P.E.I Fishermen's Association will do some kind of a poll of their membership, I believe, in the middle of this week to get a better sense of what their members are thinking, and they count probably up over 1,000, for sure, 1,500 of those. So it'll be interesting to see what the response from that will be from the harvesters, which are as you know, a big proponent of, or a big component of the industry here in P.E.I.
Okay, and I guess just to follow up, is there any data or modeling on, I guess, how much demand overseas for, things like lobster might be as a result of the COVID situation?
You take the first part of that, Ken.
Thank you, Stu. Different markets are open. There is different markets that are closed or reduced, and some people that have markets secured want to make sure that they feed them markets. We must, remember also that if I don't provide product into a market, somebody else is willing to do that, and of course that's something that has to be considered too. But it's very complex.
Yeah,
thank you.
that's a good answer.
Sean McDougall, Eastern Graphic.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Premier, you mentioned that the tourism industry is one of the pillars, so to speak, of the island economy. Will seasonal restaurants be allowed to open this year? I understand that we're in essential services right now, but will owners of seasonal restaurants be allowed to open up their operations? And if so, what is that going to look like for them?
Thank you, Sean. I think you asked a question that people ask every day, and we really don't know the answer as to what that looks like going forward. I think as it stands right now, we take our direction on issues such as this from the Chief Public Health Officer. I talked to her about this this morning, that we really would love to be in a position in 5 or 6 weeks' time to say we can start to work through this, but we're not in that mindset as of right now. We're still dealing very much with a very real health pandemic that's devastated the world. So I would certainly hope that there is some semblance of a tourism season in Prince Edward Island that would allow restaurants such as yourself to open in some way, shape, or form. But it is premature to say that they will or they won't as of today. I do think there's a desire for all of us, first and foremost, to try to do what we can to flatten this curve and get through the current situation we're in, and then begin to look at what the picking up of the pieces look like.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
François, Radio Canada. François, Radio Canada.
Pardon me, my microphone was off. Good afternoon, Premier and the ministers. Question for the Premier or Minister Fox. Do you have an idea of what kind of compensation you would want to have for fishers if the season was not to go ahead as some people in the industry have wished for?
Look, let me just take it first, Jamie. I really don't want to deal with the hypotheticals of that as at this time. I have brought it up at the national level that if such a thing were to happen, that we can't undertake our fisheries here, that we would need a very significant package from the federal government to compensate those who would be, I would have to say, would be devastated by not having that ability to fish here. But I don't think that we're there yet. From a provincial perspective, the few things that we can control, we do have a lot of a lending portfolio in the fishery sector through Finance P.E.I. So we would be in a position to defer payments and interest if we had to go down that road. But in terms of what an overall compensation package would look like, it's something that we have raised at a very preliminary level at the federal table and would need to go down the road on. I know other jurisdictions like Alberta are looking for something like that for their oil patch, for example, and the fishery in Atlantic Canada would be on that level. I've raised it with my Atlantic premiers on our calls that if and when we have to go down that road, that we would need to be very aggressive and we would need the federal government to come to the table significantly, and that would be in the area of multi-millions, not minor.
Yeah, thank you, Premier. This is something that Minister McKay and I have discussed over the last while with his team at Finance P.E.I. and Innovation, and we've also discussed this from a provincial standpoint between the ministers. We did raise it with the federal minister, and then we are, of course, working with industry to find out, what something could look at. And the Premier alluded to it. It could look at loan deferrals and no interest, no payments for a period of time. Then it also touches, of course, on E.I. benefits going forward. And then you've got to look at the workers too. So it's and something else that has to be put in context here is you have to look at the fishery over a whole period of year, and that whatever compensation, it must be fair to something I've been saying. It has to be fair to all sectors across all of Atlantic Canada, including Quebec, because we're all involved in the fishery at some point.
Yeah, and one thing that I know everyone talks a lot about lobster, and that is a very important thing, but Minister Fox referenced the wild oyster industry, for example. That is scheduled to open as well on May 1st, and the markets for that right now would be would be almost non-existent, it might be fair to say. The oyster market right up until about the 15th of March, we were probably in the best year that we were ever having, a complete banner season. There was demand beyond what we have seen in recent years. That came to an abrupt halt on the 15th or so of March when this reality kicked in. And from our mussel industry, we're probably operating on about a 10 or 15% capacity of what we would have been doing prior to March 15th. And then there are many other sectors of this fishery that make up this multi-billion-dollar industry in Atlantic Canada. And that's what Minister Fox was referencing, is that, yes, lobster is the big component of that and a huge, huge contributor, but there are many, many others that will need our attention here as well.
A follow-up question on a different topic, if I may, Premier. Why haven't we seen more of the health minister since the beginning of this crisis?
Well, the health minister has been working hard. We will have some information down the road on that, but we are in a public health emergency, as you know, and by the act, that means the chief public health officer takes the leadership role. Dr. Morrison has been the leader of this from the very beginning, and it's her job as laid out under the Public Health Act to carry out the duties as she's been doing them. And I would say there wouldn't be a Prince Edward Islander who would suggest that she hasn't done an absolutely exceptional job at that. Behind the scenes, the Departments of Health and Wellness, the Health P.E.I. and the professionals that are in there have been working tirelessly, long days. PPE has been a challenge that they have been leading the charge on. And also, you know, it's important to point out that, yes, we are dealing primarily, first and foremost, with COVID-19 and the challenges that are connected to that. But it is the health care of Islanders continues. People, sadly, are having health emergencies that need our attention, and the system is there to do that. And under the leadership of Minister Aylward and those professionals, they've been doing a great job, and I thank them for it.
Thank you.
Laurent Lavoie.
Yes, good afternoon. I have a question for you, Mr. Premier. According to the economic update which has been published a few days ago, the main assumption for the rebound in employment is that the social restrictions will be lifted at the beginning of June. And I'd like to know what is your level of confidence in that assumption based on your daily discussions with Dr. Morrison?
The assumption that we would start to come back in June, was that the question? I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, anyone who would tell you that they know exactly what's going to happen and that their forecast would be 100% accurate in this time and this climate wouldn't be telling you the truth. We are trying to forecast the best we can with the hope that in some way, shape, or form we can begin to get toward the recovery process of this. We hope that can be soon. June would be a great date, but right now that is I would say a target. I don't think that it's safe to say that we wouldn't be in a position in a few weeks' time to make some new forecasted assessments based on where we're at. This is you know, you've heard me say it a million times. There's absolutely no playbook for this. There's no end in sight to it. And we are yet even in the infant stages of how we go about measuring what the overall impact of this is going forward beyond health. So I hope that the forecast that we put forward is somewhat solid and that we can build on it from there. But we undertake this from a budgeting perspective with the real knowledge that the sand shifts and we're going to have to shift accordingly.
Thank you.
Merci. Well, thank you very much, and thank you as always to the media. You are doing a great job in sharing the messages here with Islanders and under very difficult circumstances. So thank you for your continued work, and thanks to all Islanders who've tuned in. So thank you.